In a pretty little house, there once lived a neat old widow who wore the cleanest caps and the finest kerchief you ever saw in your life. She was very fond of washing and scrubbing and baking and sewing. Everybody who knew her used to say that she was the most hard-working lady they had ever seen and an example to the whole village. This good woman had two little girls living with her whom she was always trying to make as clean and neat as herself. She taught them how to knead bread, cook rice and meals. She also taught them to spin fine thread on their spinning wheels. Every morning, the moment the big brown cockerel in the yard gave his first crow, she would get out of the bed, go to the room where the little girls slept and shake them until they woke. "Get up! Get up!" she would say. "Don't you hear the cockerel crowing outside? The sun will be shining over the hill in a moment. Nobody in this house must stay in bed when once the cockerel has crowed." The little girls were always dreadfully sleepy and did not want to get up in the least. But the bustling old woman would stand over them, till they got out of bed, yawning and blinking their eyes. Then she would start her household chores, telling them to wash and dress and to follow her into the kitchen as quickly as they could. Now one of the things the little girls had to do was to feed the poultry, the big brown cockerel among the others. He was rather a greedy bird and always ate a lot of the scraps and corn that were thrown on the ground. The old lady would stand at the kitchen door to watch the feeding, and the more the cockerel ate, the better she was pleased. "Is he not a fine bird?" she would say to the little girls. "Be sure and give him the best bits of food. If he doesn't crow we would always be oversleeping, for there would be nobody to wake us in the morning." Then the little girls would look at each other under their eyelashes and pout. For they both hated the brown bird which tried to wake everybody at sunrise when it would be so much nicer to sleep on until 8 or 9 o'clock. At last, one day, when the cockerel seemed to have crowed even earlier than usual, they decided they could stand it no longer. They waited until their mother had gone to market, then they caught the poor brown cockerel and wrung his neck. After that they buried him as quickly as they could in the field on the other side of the fence. Then, rather frightened at what they had done, they set to work to cook for the lunch. The lady came home and found that her dear bird was missing. She searched for the cockerel everywhere while the girls also pretended as much so that their mother might not suspect them. The lady missed the cockerel very much. But when they went to bed, however, the girls told each other how glad they were that they had killed the horrid bird at last. "Now," they said to each other, "we shall have a little peace. How lovely it will be to sleep as long as we want to with no crowing to wake our mother in the morning." They cuddled down into their pillows and fell asleep. But in the middle of the night, or so it seemed to them, the old lady came to their bedside in her nightcap, carrying a lighted candle. "Get up! Get up!" she said to them all in a bustle. "We have no cockerel to wake us now, and it will never do to oversleep. The dawn has not broken yet, I know. It will break presently, and without the crowing in the yard, we shall not even know that day has come. Get up! Get up! Follow me into the kitchen as quickly as possible." How sad and disappointed those little maidens were. But they were obliged to do as their mother told them. So they got up and stalled scrubbing and washing and spinning by candlelight, sleepier than they had ever been in their lives. and as the old lady has been too fond of that cockerel to wish to buy another to take his place, she went on waking the little girls in the middle of the night. She was insisting on getting them up to work as no single minute of the coming daylight should be wasted. Oh, how those two blinking, yawning little girls wished that they had never killed the big brown cockerel. Moral: as you sow, so you reap. Once, there lived a fruit trader named Marshall in a village in England. He was doing good business. His son Thomas had completed his education and was now helping his father's business. The boy was very clever and hardworking. Marshall took great pride in his son's abilities. Marshall had a wish to get his son a wife who would be as hardworking as the pair of father and the son was. No place for any lazy person in his family. Marshall had the idea that such a girl would take good care of his son and the house. But the problem was how to find out such a girl. He could not trust the words of others. Marshall thought of a plan. He loaded a wheel cart with a lot of fruits and himself wheeled it to the colonies. Marshall called out loud, "Take it. Take apples, oranges, bananas, any fruits for the dust and dirt of your home, pay no money." Wherever he went, the woman would come out of their houses to see what fool was selling fruits for dust and dirt. At first, no woman came to him because they thought that it could be some trick or a hoax. The housewives whispered among themselves that the fruit seller could be trying to fool them or he had some devious plan in mind. The women decided to test the offer of the fruit seller by one of them going to him. So, a woman went to Marshall and enquired, "What's this matter about dust and dirt? How many fruits would you give for how much rubbish?" Marshall informed, "The more dirt and dust you bring, the more fruits you get." The woman would not believe him. She asked him to wait and rushed into her house. She swept the floors of her rooms and collected as much dust and dirt she could in a hurry. Then, she came back to the fruit seller with a bagful of rubbish. The fruit seller gave her fruits of equal weight, to the surprise of all the women. Now all the women ran into their houses and began sweeping their homes in frenzy. It was dust all over. The housewives competed in grabbing the fruits. The women came with bags, sacks and binfuls of trash. All the women and girls were happy that some fool was giving them fruits for rubbish. Then, a girl approached the fruit cart. Marshall saw that she had brought nothing. He asked, "Dear girl, don't you want fruits?" The girl shyly produced a handkerchief in which there were hardly 2 pinches of dust. She stammered, "Yes, sir, can you give me some fruit for this much dust?" Marshall replied, Sure, why not? Pick any fruit you like. But tell me, could you find only this much dust in your house?" The girl turned red and said, "Intact, there was no dust in my home. Sorry. My neighborhood auntie asked me to collect dust of her house and get some fruit for her if possible. Give me any fruit, if you wish." Marshall said to the girl, "My dear, you can take all these fruits. I want to meet your father to ask your hand for my son." The girl pointed at her house and ran inside. The father of the girl readily agreed to the proposal of Marshall. He was very happy that his daughter would be married into a rich merchant family. Meanwhile, Marshall too was happy because he was getting a daughter-in-law in whose house there was not even a pinch of dust or dirt, which showed how hard-working the girl was.